Happy Sunday, Gym Army, and welcome to my Sunday Mass. Sorry for the delay, but we've got a lot to discuss today, and I had a lot to prep for you because we're covering how to reach your peak for the finale. Well, this is, oh, sorry. Anyway, for the finale of my, we're actually adding some stuff here, to my Holiday Shred Challenge. So, remember, to win the challenge, you have to supply not only a before and an after photo, but you need to show your progress each and every week. Now, what we're looking for is the biggest transformation that's made from the start photo, the very first one, to the end photo. So, how are you going to maximize your results, if you will, or optimize your results in that photo? Because that photo is everything. That's what we're going to be judging your results on. So you want to make sure you nail your photos and you reach your peak on the day that you're going to shoot your photos. How do you do that? I'm going to cover that. It's all about diet. Now, can you get me the picture of Stefan here? Stefan, now, let's talk about Stefan here. Now, Stefan won one of my challenges, and you could see he used my Reach Your Peak plan to get there. And that's what we're going to cover today. So, what we're going to be doing is covering, and this is a free article at Stoppani.com. You could also find this on bodybuilding.com. It's probably there, called My 7 Steps, because we're going to cover the 7 steps to reaching your peak on photo day. So go to the Stoppani.com website. If you haven't read this article, at the end of today's live, make sure you go and read the article because I explain this in more detail, but today I'm going to walk you through exactly what we do. Now, as it says here, follow these 7 steps. We're going to walk through those 7 steps so that you reach your peak on the day that you take your final photos, so that you really look the most shredded, the most vascular, the leanest, and the most muscular. Okay, so let's back it up. Now, for those of you who are familiar with my training and my schedule, you know I'm also doing the Hit 100s right along with you guys. How are my results coming along? Right? Now, I'm going to finish, I'm going to finish on, let's see, Saturday. This is November. So this is our calendar, right? So here we're in October. The 28th is when I'm going to start my prep for reaching my peak. The 28th of October, okay? So that's going to be Monday in a couple weeks, right? So Monday, and then we see this is October 31st, Halloween, little ghost here. Boo. So you know that's Halloween. This is November 1st. So I am going to finish my last workout on Saturday, November 9th. That's going to be the last workout I do in my Hit 100 program, my Holiday Shred Challenge. Obviously, I'm not competing with you guys, right? But I shoot pretty much every Monday, okay, in the gym here. So I prep myself pretty much every Monday. So I'm going to be doing this anyway, not to compete with you guys, but for my own photos. So, this is going to be my peak day, October 11th. Okay? Now, why didn't I make it on the Saturday or the Sunday? We're going to talk about that in the 7 steps that we have to do, because you're going to need a bit of time after your workout before you want to take your final photos when you reach your peak. So, we're going to step back 2 weeks from our peak day. So, for those of you who started with me on, when did I start? October 7th, I believe. Is that the date I started? I'm pretty sure. October 7th is when I started the Hit 100s, my Holiday Shred Challenge. So, if you started with me, you're also going to end on the 9th, right? So, you'll be following the same protocol, basically, as I am on the same date. So if you're going to end on the 9th, you're going to want to shoot your photos on the 11th. if you're a week behind me or a week ahead of me, some people started the week ahead of me. You may be ending on the 2nd, meaning you're going to want to shoot your photos 2 days later on the 4th, okay? Maybe you're behind me and you're going to finish on, what is this, the 10th, 12th, what is that, the 16th, I believe? Yeah, the 16th here. Maybe you're going to finish here. That means you would shoot your photos on the following Monday, the 18th. Or is it 2 weeks, okay? But anyway, you're going to find your peak day, okay? And then we're going to work back, okay? Follow these 7 steps. Step 1 is to load up on sodium or salt. And as you read right here, how do you do it? Right in the little section here. We're going to want to do this for 2 weeks prior to the peak date. You want to start loading with sodium. So, if you look at my key here, right? I've got red is for sodium or salt. Blue is water. We're going to be manipulating how much water we drink, how much salt we take in. Green is carbs. We're going to be changing up how many carbs we consume. And then we're going to talk about creatine and the fallacy that creatine will bloat you and you need to cut it out before a contest or a photo shoot. Now remember, even if you're not doing my Holiday Shred Challenge or my Hit 100 program, this protocol works if you're a bodybuilder getting ready for a contest coming up in a few months. Maybe you have photos that you just want to do on your own. Maybe you have a wedding to go to and, well, what time of year is it? I live in LA, so it's always hard to adjust what the weather is like around the world. But maybe it's a summer wedding, a beach wedding perhaps. Or you're just going on vacation and you want to look your best when you're on the beach for those 2 days down in Cancun. This all works, okay? So regardless of your goal, this is how you're going to make sure that when you take those photos, you look the most vascular, the most shredded, the most fullest, and the leanest. This is how I do it. This is why, if you appreciate the photos you see that I post, why I look so vascular, so lean, and so muscular. It's all about what I do to prep, and this is how we do it. So we're going to go back 2 weeks before our date and start loading up on sodium, okay? So you want to be hitting somewhere around 3,000, at least 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of sodium a day. So what are we going to do? We're going to reach for high sodium foods, right? For protein, smoked salmon. I don't know if you can see this, but look at this. In 4 ounces, you're getting over 1,000, almost 1,200 milligrams of sodium right here in 4 ounces of salmon. And remember, we're trying to get up to 4,000 milligrams a day. So foods like salmon, smoked salmon, not fresh salmon, which we'll talk about in a minute. There's a big difference between fresh and prepared. Cold cuts, whether you go buy them at the deli or you get the prepackaged version, these tend to be loaded with sodium as well. It's a good way to get in extra sodium. Cheese, whether it's cheese sticks, cheese slices, again, whether it's prepackaged or fresh, turkey breast. What do we have here? Sodium, 540 milligrams basically for 2 slices. Okay, so 1,000 milligrams for every 4 slices. Right, and remember, we're trying to get our sodium up. Why do we want to get our sodium up? Guys, what are we trying to do? Before you're going, I thought high sodium was bad, Jim. Look, first of all, make sure you read my article at jimstoppani.com on the myths about sodium. As an athlete, sodium is one of, if not the most critical elements that you can be getting in your body. Sodium controls muscle contraction. So you know what happens when you sodium deplete and you try to follow a low sodium diet? Your muscle strength suffers, okay? You don't want to be following a low sodium diet unless you're days before a photo shoot. You actually want to be living the opposite, on a higher sodium diet. Don't believe the BS about low sodium diets. You need sodium as an athlete. So what we're doing here is we're going to load up on our sodium, okay? What we're trying to do is trick our kidneys. let's see. I'm going to go here and, is it in the photo section, Tim? Can you, here, I'm going to have Tim, can you pull up the kidney thing as I talk? So what we're trying to do here is, you see this, the red arrow, right? So you're going to be eating sodium for an entire week, high levels of sodium here, right? Then if you notice here in week 2, the arrow goes down and we're going to start dropping it. Okay, so what are we doing? Well, here's a shot of our nephrons in the kidneys. Okay, this is where we lose our sodium and then retain it. Okay, all in the kidneys. It's all about the kidneys. Now, what the body wants to do is maintain homeostasis always. So, if you're following a low sodium diet and then one day you go eat 4,000 milligrams of sodium, you're going to blow up, right? You're going to retain water. However, your body is very good at getting it back to homeostasis. So a day later, you'll start pissing like a horse and you'll drop all that water. That's what the body does. It adjusts, okay? And it changes. So what we want to do is get the body used to high sodium, okay? Once we continue eating high sodium, that'll be its normal level. Then, when we come in a week before and we cut our sodium, that's going to cause a drastic change in the body, because now that sodium change is going to be noticed by the kidneys and you're going to start dropping water. Okay, so this is the key, is to load up first. Like I said, we're going to be using high sodium foods about 2 weeks out to get up to 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of sodium. And again, don't worry about the sodium, guys. Sodium is very healthy for someone who trains. Most of the research that's out there on things like sodium and glucose and fat intake are all based on sedentary people, okay? You're not sedentary. I'm not sedentary. We're different animals. So our bodies don't respond the same way because we exercise like we're supposed to, okay? So all that low sodium nonsense is for people who are A, sodium sensitive. That's only about 20 to 30% of the population, okay? If you're sodium sensitive, then you have to worry. If not, you need to be eating at least high sodium, which is quite the opposite. So like I said, we go for a week of high sodium, then a week out, we start dropping our sodium, okay? And we'll get back to that in a minute, okay? So first week, we're going through high sodium. The other thing that we're doing, let me bring up the article here. The other thing that we're doing here is dropping carbs, okay? Now, you want to drop carbs for a number of reasons, okay? So if we go over here, week 1 out, you're going to see my carbs in green, right? We're dropping carbs. Now, if you're 2 weeks away from your peak date, you likely are fairly low carb already, okay? Regardless of where your carbs are, as you get into week 1 out from your peak date, you want to be under 0.25 grams per pound of body weight, okay? 0.25 grams per pound of body weight. Do the math on a 200-pound person. That'll tell you how many grams of carbs you can get. And again, this is going to be the same on these days here. Now, what's this little plus that goes away here? The plus is your post-workout carbs, okay? Meaning, on these 3 days, you're going to be eating low carbs, but I still want you to get your post-workout carbs in, at least if you're still doing them. If your diet has already dropped your post-workout carbs, that's fine. But here you're going to maintain them if you're still doing post-workout carbs. Then, as you get over here to Thursday, before your peak day on Monday, what you're going to start doing is dropping the post-workout carbs, okay? So these 2 days, the Thursday and Friday, are going to be so low, you're not even going to get post-workout carbs, okay? But then comes Saturday and Sunday, the 2 days before our peak date, we're now going to up the carbs. So we've gone from very low to very high, going as high as 3 to 4 grams per pound of body weight on both of these days, and then eating even higher carbs. We'll talk about that here in peak day. I'm going to break down peak day for you on its own and kind of walk you through what happens on peak day. But the 2 days prior, we're going to switch from going low carb to very high carb. And again, like with the sodium, we're tricking the body. What the research shows on carb intake and what we call glycogen replenishment, okay? We store glucose in our muscles as well as our liver. But when we store it in the muscles, it also pulls water in with it. When you pull water into the muscle gets bigger. It's like a balloon. It volumizes. That's one of the ways that creatine works. It helps to pull more water into the muscle, enlarging the cells, which stretches the membranes of those muscle cells and increases protein synthesis, telling the muscle, we need to grow so we can hold more of this fluid, okay? So carbs are important. But what we want to do is first drop them, because what the research shows is when you lower your carbs, like sodium again, it tricks the body so that now when we up our carbs, we can hold more carbs in the muscle. What we call it over-supercompensates, because the muscles have been so depleted that now when you introduce all these carbs, it takes in more into the muscle than it normally would. And so your muscles end up getting fuller. So we drop our carbs to prep the body to respond and get fuller, but dropping the carbs is also helping us burn more body fat, right? And so we're really whittling away that body fat as we get down to the final days before our shoot. Then when we carb up, all those carbs aren't damaged. They're going to lead to body fat. They're going to go to replenish muscle glycogen and fill you out on these 2 days. Okay, so those are your carbs. Now, one of the things that we have to talk about with our carbs is our water levels, okay? Because as we're dropping water, right, that's what we're trying to do, is get rid of the water that's under the skin so that you can see the muscle, right? You can see the definition. I'm not sure how the lighting is in here, but you can see the difference between my biceps long head and the brachialis here, right? Okay, so we want to get that separation and look much leaner. And one of the ways you do that is by manipulating our water, right? You're getting more water out from under the skin so that it's not blurring the muscle. You can see the veins, you can see the muscles, but then we want the water to go into the muscle and fill it up and pop it out even more, which will make the definition even greater. So what we're doing is with the carbs and the water and the sodium is changing the way our body fills up with that fluid and where it holds the fluid. Remember, we don't want it to go under the skin, which is one of the most common problems with this protocol. If you don't do it properly, you either are too flat because you've lost too much water, or you might be too bloated because you've put too much water and sodium back, and what we call it spills over out of the muscles and under the skin. However, like I said, I've perfected this protocol. Thousands of people have used it and used it successfully. If you use this and listen to your body, it'll work well and you won't screw it up. So, we had high sodium the first week. Week 2, you'll see that sodium arrow goes down. So now we're going to start dropping the sodium, right? We start dropping sodium, water is increasing, okay? So we're dropping sodium, increasing water. Why are we doing that? We're cutting out the salt and we're putting in tons of water in our body. The water is going to help to flush out any of the excess sodium that's still in the body, okay? And get all that sodium out. So, 1 week before your peak date, you're going to drop sodium from 4,000, 3 to 4,000 down to 2,000. The next day, 6 days out from your peak date, you're going to half that to 1,000, okay? 5 days out, you're going to try to get around 600 or less. Try, again, it's very hard to eat low sodium, okay? We're going to talk about some of the foods that we can pick and choose from. I'll get that in a minute. But these days here, you're going to try to stay around 600 or less. The last 2 days before, you want to be eating very, very low, as little sodium as you can, okay? Right before. And then we'll talk about this peak day, why I have this asterisk right here. We're going to talk about what we're doing with our salt and our water on this day, and it'll depend on the mirror, okay? We'll talk about monitoring yourself so that you perfect the peak on this day. I know there's a lot to follow, guys, and it gets confusing. That's why you should have read the article already so that you can sort of follow this little demo and be able to make sense of what's going on. But don't worry. Like I said, these lives stay on. Go read the article and come back and watch the live as a video. So, week 1 out, we're dropping sodium. We're also increasing water, like I said, right, to flush it out. So, 7 days from peak day, you're drinking 1.5 to 2 gallons of water. 1.5 to 2 gallons of water, 6 days out. 1.5 to 2 gallons of water, 5 days out. 1.5 to 2 grams of water, 4 days out. 1.5 to 2 grams of water, 3 days out from your peak date. Then, when we get to days 2 and 1, before our peak date, we drop our water, okay? So, we've used the high water here to, like I said, flush out the sodium. And what happens when we flush out sodium? When we lower our sodium in the body, the water comes out as well. So, we've put all this water into our body, which seems counterproductive, right? Because we're trying to lose water. But with the low sodium, that water is flushing all the sodium out. So that when we go over here and we drop our water, now we're going to cut it back to just half a gallon a day. 2 days before. Now, because we have no sodium, all the water that we drank this week is literally going to come flying out. You're going to be pissing like you wouldn't believe on Saturday. That's the goal, is to piss all that extra cellular water out, okay? That's the water that's under the skin, while trying to maintain as much intracellular water in the muscles. 1 day prior to your peak day, you're only allowed to sip water whenever you're thirsty. Some crushed ice, kind of like when you go to the hospital and they tell you can't have any water, they give you some ice to sort of suck on. That's basically what you're going to be doing on the Sunday or the day before your peak day, okay? Now, we've talked about sodium. We've talked about water. Let's talk about the carbs again. Again, we were dropping our carbs, right? 0.25 the week before, at least. You're probably low carb here as well, but like I said, even if you're higher carb here, even if you're maintaining like 2 grams of carbs per pound of body weight or even higher here, you still want to drop down here because you're trying to deplete, okay? The way we get all these carbs to go into the muscle is to deplete the carbs first. The way we do that is with a low carb diet and exercise, okay? So, because you're doing the HIT 100 program during this week, you're going to be getting plenty of exercise. You don't have to worry about it. I typically recommend training intensely, high reps to deplete the glycogen up until 2 days prior to your peak day. Now, most of you will be training on Saturday. If you read the Reach Your Peak, it'll tell you to not train on these 2 days. Don't worry. You're finishing the program. So what you're going to do is come in, train, try to train early on Saturday, and then after you train, you're going to start your carb loading. That's when you're going to start jamming all the carbs after the workout, okay? Because if you do it before the workout, you're just going to deplete them during the workout, right? So use this final day, Saturday, as a final carb depletion, okay? You're going to go into the gym, deplete all those carbs. It's going to be a horrible workout, especially with the 100 reps, because you're going to be low carb, but it is going to deplete your body and allow you to then carb up very nicely. So try to do it in the morning. Now, remember, as we're increasing our carbs here on these days, we're also lowering our sodium and our water. So, what does that mean for our carb sources? They have to be low sodium and dry, right? That means Do not cook a box of spaghetti on Saturday or Sunday for your carbs. Why? Why? Why do you not want spaghetti, guys? What do you cook spaghetti in? Water. And what happens to the water? Why do we cook spaghetti in water? Does the water cook it? Yes. But it also gets absorbed into the noodles, right? And so all that water goes into the noodles and now you're getting water, okay? Same thing with rice. Don't reach for rice. Don't make oats. These all require fluids. Instead of oats, go with granola. Not only is there no water in here, but look at this. I can find one that's 0 milligrams of sodium. Okay? Dry and low sodium. This is perfect for our Saturday and our Sunday. What else do we have for dry carbs? Rice cakes. Okay? Fruit, not dry, right? Couple problems with fruit. Not only are you going to get fluids here, so you don't want to be choosing these for your carb day, but they're half fructose, okay? Fructose is problematic for the body. The body does not recognize fructose. It has to change it into glucose. If you're getting plenty of glucose, the liver will instead take fructose and turn it into fat, not glucose. So, the last thing you want to be doing is converting fructose into fat these 2 days prior to your shoot day. You don't want to be fattening up. So, I would try to avoid fruit as much as possible because of the water, but also the fructose. If you love fruit, what I would recommend is having it in the morning on these days. Because think about it. You've slept, you haven't eaten, and what happens when you sleep? Your liver glycogen levels drop. Okay, so even though you've been carbing up, when you wake up in the morning, you're pretty much in a low carb state. And your body will take that fructose and convert it into glucose, not fat. However, if it's 8 p.m. after you've been carbing up all day and your body is already loaded with carbs, you eat fruit at 8 p.m. on this carb up day, likely it'll take that fructose and convert it into body fat. So again, I would avoid the fruit because of the water and because of the fructose. Obviously, gummy bears, no sodium. And here's, on these high carb days, here's where your post-gym fast digesting carb comes in very, very well, okay? Now, typically I recommend eating gummy bears post-workout because who wants to drink their carbs, right? Particularly if you're on a low-carb diet. If you're on a low-carb diet and you're only eating carbs post-workout, don't drink them. Don't drink them. Eat them and enjoy them. However, when you're trying to boatload carbs and get in 4 grams, it's a lot of carbs to eat. So having a drink like post-gym, which has no fructose in it, pure dextrose, is the perfect way to get in your carbs. Now, you could also have some fun here with a Coke as well. But again, I've got a Mexican Coke here, which does not use high fructose corn syrup. It uses sugar. But again, sugar is still half fructose, half glucose, just not as much as high fructose corn syrup. So if you want to reach for maybe a Coke while you're in your fluid days, when it's down into the low fluid days, obviously you can't reach for the Coke. But if you are drinking, watch your sodium, particularly in the low sodium days, even with diet sodas, okay? This one has, what is this? 100 milligrams of sodium per this bottle. This one has 160 milligrams of sodium per the bottle. Coke Zero, 70 milligrams. So, if you're drinking a lot of diet sodas, watch the sodium intake because it can add up. Now, let's talk also about high sodium foods when you're sodium loading. As I said, we can use We had smoked salmon here. It was 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Other good choices during those 2 weeks out on the protein. Tuna, canned tuna or canned chicken. Right, like I already covered the deli. Meats. What else? Sardines. Anchovies. I mean, the tuna, whether it's in the pack or not. These are all ways to get in more sodium, during this week. And then other good carb sources, dry potato or your sweet potato, lower glycemic index, high glycemic index. So this works best for post-workout. This is a more slower digesting. And again, dry. These are good dry sources of your carbs for when you're dropping your water and you're carbing up. Now, what about when you're trying to keep your sodium levels extremely low, but you're trying to get in protein? What do? Well, eggs are a poor choice, believe it or not. Why? How much protein is in an egg? An egg equals 6 grams of protein, 5 to 6 grams depending on the size, okay? Do you know how much sodium is in here? Somewhere around 60 to 70 milligrams per egg, okay? So, if you wanted to get 24 grams of protein from 4 eggs, you're also getting 240 milligrams of sodium from that 24 grams of protein, right? Plain chicken breast, a burger, and when I'm talking about plain chicken breast, I'm talking about fresh, okay? Make sure if this is frozen, the chances of them injecting it with a saline solution, which is sodium, is bigger, okay? Because they need to do that when they freeze it to preserve it. So you're best going with fresh meats because they don't add any type of sodium, okay? So if you're getting fresh meat, whether it's chicken, whether it's ground beef, a regular steak, fresh fish, like salmon, and people think, well, fish is high in sodium. No, there's really, just because it comes from the sea, it's not in the muscle, okay? We're talking about muscle here, and the muscle is all the same, regardless of the animal. So, in 3 ounces of meat, and again, this is beef, fish, pork, chicken, per 3 ounces, you get about 60 to 80 milligrams of sodium. How many grams of protein are in 3 ounces of meat? Well, there's about, could be anywhere depending on the meat, 5 to 7 grams per ounce, right? You multiply that, that's somewhere around 15 to 20 grams of protein with only 80 milligrams of sodium. To get the same equivalent with eggs, you'd be up there around 240 milligrams of sodium. That's only for 24 grams of protein. You need more than that. So, when it comes to protein sources, during the low sodium week, you want to be choosing fresh meats. This is not the time to be using canned tuna or canned chicken or smoked salmon, fresh salmon. This is not the time for deli meats, anchovies. Even protein powders can be problematic. Look at this. What flavor is this? Rocky Road. 280 milligrams of sodium per scoop. Now, what are we getting in that scoop? We're getting 24 grams of protein per 280 milligrams of sodium. Over here, 15 to 20, with the fresh, it's only going up to about 80 milligrams. So, watch your protein powder intake, because some of them have far more than 200 milligrams per scoop. So you may want to be limiting your protein powder intake during at least this week of the phase because of the sodium content. Now, let's talk about the water intake. 1.5 to 2 gallons. 1, 2, 3. You got 5 days of guzzling water. I find the easiest way to make sure that you're getting enough water is, instead of just counting how many glasses you're drinking, is to buy 2 gallons. Buy 2-gallon jugs, have them cold each day. I've only got one here. This is 1 gallon. When that one's finished, you know you've drinking 1 gallon. When the next one is half done, you've hit your 1.5 mark. If you drink it all, you've hit your 2 gallons and you're done. You don't have to be counting up ounces of water throughout your day. Just get like I said, 2 gallons each day, chill them, keep them cold, and that's how you're gonna get in enough water. Now, last thing I'll talk about is the peak day, okay? What are we gonna do on the actual peak day here? Okay, that's gonna depend on how you look, okay? Remember, I've designed this perfectly for me, okay? However, this year or next year, 1 week, my body might be a little different, might respond a little differently, okay? So I have to adjust based on what I look like on this day, okay? If I do this next week and then do this 6 months later, I might not get the same exact results. If I follow precisely, likely I will, but my body could be a little different, something could be changed, and I could respond a little differently. So I use this day to sort of fix any problems that may occur. What could be the problems? Well, let's talk about it. As you'll see, I have sodium with an arrow down, but that little asterisk right there, and same with water. What does that mean? Well, it means you're still pretty much following a low sodium, low water diet, okay? Because we want to keep the water out from under the skin. However, you may wake up on this day and look in the mirror and be like, you know what, I'm really flat. I think I lost too much water in the muscle. What does that mean? Well, it means you need more sodium. Okay, you've depleted your sodium so much that you've not only dropped your extracellular water, but you're dropping too much of your intracellular water, the water in the muscles, which is making you look flat. So what you're going to do on this day is eat high sodium foods very, very slowly, and constantly monitor yourself in the mirror. So if you wake up on Monday before your photo shoot and you think that you're flat, go get a nice fast food meal, because it'll be loaded with sodium. It's also loaded with fat, protein, and carbs, which are going to help us fill up. So if you wake up on the day and you're flat, start eating higher sodium foods. Now, remember, you're still not drinking much water, which is why you can do this. If you went and ate this thing, ate all the fries, ate the burger, maybe even got a bag of chips, ate the chips, was guzzling Coke, and still guzzling water, with all that sodium, the water is going to be retained, okay? And then you're going to start blowing up. Hopefully it'll go into the muscle. But if you drink too much water and too much sodium, it's going to spill over, like I said, and get under the skin. So you don't want to do that. You want to eat these fries slowly. Eat the burger slowly. Watch yourself in the mirror. See how your abs respond. How are your veins, okay? Watch it, because you don't want to overdo it. Slowly add some of the sodium and sip on the water. If you feel like you're not filling up, have a little more water, but slowly sip it throughout the day. Now let's talk about the carbs. We're still eating high carbs on this day because we want to be full, right? And that's, like I said, here's where your chances to get some fun foods, because you're not drinking that much water. So even if you eat too much sodium, as long as you don't drink too much fluid, it's not going to cause a problem. And in fact, what the sodium may end up doing without drinking much water is pulling the water from under the skin into the muscle, because the sodium is going to go into the muscle and want to draw water. Where's the water coming from? The extracellular space, which is outside of the muscle. So it may actually help you get leaner and fuller. But again, you have to do this very slow. This is why most bodybuilders work with coaches. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. Some of them need the help, obviously, because it's a lot of biochemistry and nutrition. But it's about the eye. It's about having another eye look at you and go, yeah, you're a little bloated. We need to maybe drop some sodium. Or yeah, you're a little flat. Let's get this. So that's why a lot of bodybuilders use coaches. I'm my own coach. I know exactly what I need to do to monitor and change. Now, another thing I'm going to talk about is things like mustard. I don't have any ketchup here, but ketchup. When you're in those low sodium phases here, you're not going to be marinating your meat. You're not going to be using things like mustard because they're going to add sodium. So you're going to try to have your food as plain as possible. So, there you have it, guys. I know, like I said, this is very, very complex, but once you've read the article and I take you through the steps. Oh, I got one more thing before I go. I want to talk about creatine. You go through the steps. It works very well. So, we've got creatine here in purple. You'll see the squares here. You should be taking creatine, right? We know that creatine is one of the most effective supplements out there. And the way it works, like I said, one way is to pull more fluid into the muscle. That's not really what it does, though. That's just one of the side effects of it. Creatine is an energy molecule. It's used as energy. It helps the muscles contract, okay? The creatine gains a high energy phosphate. It's that high energy phosphate that literally is like an explosion, causes the muscles to allows them to contract. That's critical. Now, what people think is that because it draws water, it bloats you. And that there is some truth to that, okay? There is some truth to that. When you're using high doses of creatine, which you have to do with creatine monohydrate, some of that can be retained in the extracellular space and pull water into that area, okay? Now, that doesn't happen that often, but it's one of the reasons why I use creatine hydrochloride, okay? Creatine hydrochloride is taken up better at both the intestines as well as the muscle, okay? It's absorbed better, meaning you need far less. So I have 2 grams in my pre-gym and another 2 grams in my post-gym, okay? A lot of experts will tell you to cut out your creatine before a contest or a photo shoot because it retains water. Yeah, it retains water in the muscle, okay? That's where you want the water, right? So having creatine in the muscle is going to help you not retain water under the skin because it's going to want to pull the water into the muscle, okay? So keeping your levels high with creatine is going to help you look leaner by keeping the water in the muscle. Now, I use, like I said, creatine hydrochloride because you need far less. When you use far less, there's less potential for any bloating or any stomach upset. So don't worry about your creatine all the way up, right up to the day of. I use my creatine the entire time. I never cut out creatine hydrochloride. And like I said, because it's a small dose, I don't have to worry about spilling over that water. And in fact, it helps to pull it into the muscle. So stick with the creatine hydrochloride all the way up, even on the day of. Now, how do you do that when you're on low water? You can put it in at a high concentration in your water, and then sip on that as you're allowed to sip on your water. So, again, guys, very complex, but once you take the time to fully understand this and run it through and alter it for your body, and remember, I'm very active on social media, so as you're prepping, if you have questions as you're going through this food or that food, is this food okay, Jim? Am I doing it right? Ask me. Ask me. And if you can't wait for a response from me, go to the Gym Army Facebook group page. There's many Gym Army members who've already used this and probably had the same issues that you did and already have a solution. So guys, thanks again for tuning in. Good luck with the Holiday Shred Challenge. I know now whoever wins is definitely going to be using this protocol. So I will be looking for some shredded monsters at the end of this program. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in with me. Thanks for training with me. And thanks for crushing my Holiday Shred Challenge. As always, guys, stay Gym Army strong. See you soon, guys.